My name is Lily Philpott. I'm the programs director at Singapore Unbound. I put together first of our events of the year. As I said, we are so excited to be launching this special book. This is the US launch of Memorial Club by Mozid Mahmud. And I really hope that you all will follow the link I just posted in the chat, and we'll share once more to get a copy of this book for yourself, and also to stay tuned with what Singapore Unbound is up to. We have a monthly event series called Second Saturdays. You are part of the first Second Saturdays of the year right now, and we will go throughout the year. We will be in person in New York City, but also occasionally virtually to be sure that we can include audience members and readers from around the country and around the world. I'm going to pass it over to G, and if I forgot to say anything, I will hop back in and say so later on.
Thank you, Lily. Hi, everyone. My name is G. Leon Ko. I'm the founder and organizer of Singapore Unbound, which is a trans literary organization based in New York City. We do two things. We organize events such as this one under Lily's leadership, and we also publish through our publishing arm, Gaudy Boy. So, we are so excited that you're here to actually celebrate with Mozid Mahmud new novel, Memorial Club. We are very proud, very honored to actually publish this as our very first translated novel. So I will tell you a little bit more about Mozid first. Mozid Mahmud is a poet and novelist based in Bangladesh. He has been awarded the Rabindra Nazrul Literary Prize, Bangladesh Writers Club Prize, and the country's National Press Club Award, among many other awards. And so we're so pleased that he is here, all right, today to actually read from his book and also to field questions from our two conversationalists with him and also from you. So joining him for conversation in the conversation is Jeffrey Woodin, who is the executive director of the Asian American Writers Workshop. She's the first woman to lead the organization since its founding in 1991. With over a decade of experience working in the public sector, she specializes in communications, education, and fundraising. She regularly volunteers her time with a number of literary and social change organizations, including serving as a literary council member for the Brooklyn Book Festival. We will hear from Jeffrey very, very soon. But to really kick off the readings, we actually have a friend of Mozid, himself a writer and a book critic, Sharia Shams, who is actually going to be reading an excerpt from Memorial Club and talking about his own experience reading the book in both his Bangla as well as his English versions. So I'm going to turn the mic over to Sharia.
Good evening, everybody. I hope everyone's doing well, and I'm audible. I will be reading from Memorial Club for a little time, and then I'll talk a little bit about the book before we go to the author himself. So here it goes. I'm reading from the third chapter. Hasan spends 4 days in prison. The officer in charge had tried to help him. If Hasan had kept his cool, the matter could have been resolved. The officer wanted it too, but Hasan's anger and curiosity brought them to this unwanted situation. Yet amid the lurid consequences of his actions, Hasan is comforted by Rabindranath's words. One mustn't part with the jewels of life, no matter how they rust in the dust. He longs to be a writer, that's why he reflects on Rabindranath in everything. But had Rabindranath ever been in prison? In Rabindranath's time, spending time in jail was a common experience, one of honor for the people of the subcontinent. The youth, desperate to free their countries, flocked into British jails like locusts. From within the prison walls, the young poets sang, "We feign being shackled and deceived to have you shackled and crippled." To those anxious for freedom, the whole of India felt like a prison under British rule. The Farisi Muslims saw India as Dar al Harb, a non-Islamic land whose rulers might be called to the path of God. Rabindranath's efforts against British rule weren't negligible, but Hasan had been surprised when he learned that Rabindranath didn't have any sedition charges filed against him. Nevertheless, the reasons why Hasan is in jail are not honorable. The accusations made against him are suspicious movement, robbery, hooliganism, and misconduct. Perhaps if he had engaged a lawyer, they could not have pinned all this on him. However, Hasan did not want one. He thought, let's see what happens. A discontent was brewing in him regarding his work and his household. If he had been born in British India, surely he would have been a revolutionary, fighting for change in society. He would have thrown a bomb at Kingsford's carriage and killed the magistrate, not the two women who had died instead, as intoned in the Song of Khudiram. In that song, it is said that he would return 10 months and 10 days later, born of a different mother, to continue the revolution by any means. Whenever Hasan heard the song in his childhood, he wondered whether he was that child. During the Liberation War, it was played all the time in their house. When his elder brother went to fight in the war, the song would perturb his mother, but she didn't feel good either if she didn't listen to it. Despite their reluctance, his sister would play it multiple times a day. She understood what it meant for their mother. She would ignore all work and come over to the veranda to listen to the song and wait for news of their mother. Hassan would lean his head on his mother's chest and move with the rise and fall of her emotions. No youth today has the opportunity to achieve the glory that his brother did. The nation is now free. The motherland does not want the blood of her sons anymore. While in prison, Hassan loses all hope in his job, the mere waiting for one's salary every passing month, the singing of praises of the government, the jumping at the throats of the opposition the moment they speak, as if all unproductivity and disorder belong to the opposition party. No meaningful journalism happened in this government assisted newsroom, he concludes. Even the ruling party's people considered the people to favor them. Their own party's publications didn't support them like this. Most of Hassan's colleagues perhaps do not realize this. Perhaps he does because his surroundings don't make him think like he did before. Even though he doesn't want anyone to know of his detention, within 24 hours, everyone in the office is aware of it. The crime reporter, Momin, hears about a police van taking someone away. The list of those detained by the station includes Hassan's name, but Momin doesn't at first guess it was him, as no profession was listed. Moreover, it was unthinkable that someone like Hassan would be arrested. But when Hassan is nowhere to be seen for 2 days, some of his co-workers look into his whereabouts. A peon is sent to his house who reports that the neighbors said he hadn't been there the last couple of days. His place was locked and his pregnant wife was at her parents'. His colleagues can't find a way to reach his parents. Only Bilu knows the address, but she's in Beijing. In the end, Momin confirms at the station that it really was Hassan whom the police had arrested, and that he had been sentenced to 1 month's detention without trial. I hope that was audible and everything. So that was the start of the third chapter from Mozid Mahmud's Memorial Club. And as we heard, it is the story of a young journalist named Hasan, who gets arrested one night, and then all his trouble starts. So that's how the story begins. But sorry about that. uh, uh, that's how the story begins. But Memorial Club is just not this single story of a journalist being caught in crime. It sort of spans a lot of time and space, and it talks about a lot of issues, a lot of it talks about gender issues, it talks about society. What I thought that Memorial Club did well was it depicted this encroachment of society, of the state, into an individual's life, and to an extent where the individual had to reject society or the state, as we see the character of Hasan do in the end. Um, the Hasan is essentially is the main character, and he is the frame story. But as he is detained in jail, as I read, he starts remembering his childhood memories. He starts thinking about all these uh, tropes and all these mythological aspects, and he starts to sort of construct an idea that all the suffering that he has, his suffering, is also cyclical, that it's been that sort of suffering has been the case for years and years, millennia. But there's a difference to that, and I would talk about this other character. So when Hasan first um, is imprisoned, is detained, he starts remembering about his childhood in the village, where there was a person named Yasin. And then that character, Yasin, um, gets punished for having inappropriate relations with a family member. But the punishment that Yasin goes through um, sort of mirrors the punishment that Hasan goes through. It's the same sort of punishment, but it ends up very different for both these characters. Whereas Yasin, being in the village and in being sort of in the past, relatively speaking, he sort of the punishment that he receives is sort of has a little bit of humanity in there. Um, the 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 villagers take him and they put coal on his face, and then they parade him around in a donkey. And in the end, he gets so humiliated by this um, ridiculous punishment that he kills himself essentially. But Hasan doesn't do that. Yet with Hasan's punishment, it becomes more impersonal. He's sort of shackled to the whims of the state, so he's detained for 40 days with no trial. I feel like this is a really interesting way of showing how even though that we had the Yasin's punishment was so humiliating, but it was still sort of seen as a celebration, and that at the end of that punishment, he was welcome. He would have been welcomed back to society, but that was not the case for Hasan, who after his punishment, or after the sort of judgment that he receives, his life gets even worse. And I think that's one of the most interesting parts of this novel. It has many other uh, things it tackles. There's a lot of gender issues that it talks about. It shows a predatory environment that is present in the newsrooms of Bangladesh, and perhaps in other countries as well, that we see uh, taking place. And moreover, it talks about a Bangladesh that perhaps does not really exist in that sense anymore, that there is some sort of innocence that is lost and cannot be cannot be seen again. I suppose that's most of what I felt when I read the book. I first read it in Bangla, in the original, back in 2021 when it first got published. And it was really a very weird novel because it didn't read like the usual sort of novels I read in Bangla. It was had a lot of tangents to it. It went discussing about something for pages and pages, and it seemed like, but in the end, it kind of spiraled back together. There were a lot of things that I was very weirded out about as well. But the novel left a mark in me that it was sort of memorable in that sense. So I remember when it was being translated, I was really privileged to be able to read it before or around the time it was getting published, and I was amazed that it was so changed, but it was still the same sort of it was the same novel fundamentally, but a lot more concise, I would say, a lot more shorter. But some of the scenes were changed up, but it was basically the same novel at its heart. So I think that's where I want to end. That it's a really memorable novel, and I think people should read it. And I hope readers enjoy it because it shows a sort of Bangladesh that we don't usually see in most novels. Thank you.
Thank you so much for that insight and that really generous context, Ariar. I'm going to, it's my honor to bring up the guest of the hour to our stage. We're going to hear Mozid read briefly from Memorial Club, and then we will welcome Shahryar back along with Jafreen to talk about the ways this novel has changed from Bangla to English. But please, Mozid, take it away.
I'm going to read from my novel, Memorial Club. Before that, I would like to say special thanks to Mr. G, Ms. Yume, and Lily Polpot, and another who are joined with us. I'm very grateful to Gaudy Boy and Gaudy Boy teams. It's my first chapter, Memorial Club. Months later, when Hasan found himself at the rehabilitation center in Shamoli, he will remember this dream, seeing a manhole, hospital grounds, beyond it a vast field, the grasses green blades with dew on their tips. He has a portly bag on his head, Somir's breakfast, khichuri with the husk of the lentil still intact, onions and red chilies, with the food in his arms, the crosses, the fields where his eyes fall to the unending white of catkin. Hasan feels a rumble inside him as he travels past the green and into the white shari-like embrace of the swaying young birds. Somir walks up to the river with a wooden plow, endangered for a year as a farmer to Hassan's family. He will tie the cows to the yoke and sit down to eat. His one morsel will assuage half of Hassan's hunger. A river flows from the ragged crevices of the field, a river named Podda in paddy field on one side of the river. A girl is moving toward him. He looks like Murjina. He hasn't Hassan her in long while. She looks the same as before. The girl seeing him, that turned her back and is heading the opposite way toward the river, an illusion perhaps. The girl is not Morgana. Dragging the plow with toward the river, she looks back at him and then walks away. She does this the way Bilu did. Is she Bilu? Hassan's body jerk in pain. He wonders if Somir is coming this way, failing on all fronts to control himself. He walks up as if he has had a seizure. A sliver of Falgun's late evening light melts through the window and falls over Hassan's eyes. He wakes up. He is alone. He feels alone. All the nonsense he sees in his dreams, in his cell of his body, he feels torment building up. The pain brim over. The last night of the day melt away Hassan's exhaustion, especially from the dream he just had. Isn't home. She has gone to visit her parents. He lies in bed, his legs straight. There little energy left in him. Haria will soon be a mother. The prospects of fatherhood leaves him unnerved. He feels like he is too young for it. He is his 30s. He graduated from university a while ago. His father died recently. Hassan's good university results and his job don't provide him with any pleasure. His marriage, which took place too quickly, does not either, much to his chagrin. His mood worsens as the remembers the dream he just had. One night in 1978, 1978, a little more than 2 decades ago, a swampy, grimy little village with the river wriggling down it like one's private parts between one's legs. A river where Hassan learned how to swim in his childhood. Or today, this river is dying, dries up naked with the first murmur of winter. Hassan must have learned how to swim like the freshwater insect, the driving, the floating on your back, the going away somewhere and touching other things within the water. Who had taught him this? Mozina or Somirs, or perhaps even the family's brownish cow. Murjina had said, if you don't know how to swim, how will you catch me? He used to live on the other side of the river. Their tin shed house facing south had a palm tree beside it. The tall tree was source of pride of the village, especially for Hassan during his adolescence. Only in this regard was Murjina able to differentiate herself from him. They were both similar as students, had the same like and played the same games. Everyone knew Murjina as the girl from the palm tree house. You could see the tree from 3 miles away. Vulture would fly and take refuge on the tree when they smell a plague coming. Hassan never learned where those vultures came from. Were they even born? When they came to the village, schoolboy and girls would stand in groups for safety. Although the vultures were a terrifying spectacle, their nature was quite calm. They did not eat the food the humans served them. Still, Murjina's grandmother would send her over with food. People in the village made fun of her. They said the vultures were her in-laws. Murjina was very embarrassed. I don't want to go. You go. She one would tell her grandmother. Her grandmother told her not to listen to other people on had to show mercy to living being. Only then would Allah be pleased. After the country was liberated, the vultures were not seen as open. People said they had seen too many death and had too much to mourn. When the vulture took to the air, they would run over the boys and girls' heads, jumping like plane taking off from a runway. Hassan would watch emerge like the birds grew small and disappeared in the sky. Murjana used to say, don't touch my feet, you are older than me. Hassan would say, I am only 20 days older than you. Well, older is older, she would say, even if it is just by an hour. Whatever it is that bring the vulture, Hassan fails to pick up the smell. Still, his insatiable soul wanders past Murjina's reading room to the breath in a little of the chlorophyll infused air. He can still hear the ruffling of the vulture wing on the palm tree. The tree, the pride of the village, would undergo immolation, a misty flame of dark smoke, bringing it dignity to tatters. The fire that caught on November 24, 1971, was a different color. Hassan's house had burned in that fire. He remembers it clearly. They had to take refuge near a wetland about 3 miles from the village. Hassan's family gathered under the dead palm tree of their house that winter morning. The cold yellow light fell on their dry skin. Murjina came through the mustard field. One could see the pollen from the mustard flower striking to her feet. The yellow suited her hair dimmer. Perhaps she had applied herself. Hasan, remember the wonderful lines from the poem by Josimuddin, the longing for the yellow through a garland of mustard. I pills come out of their jail for the keys. They were supposed to get juice from the dead palm on their tree. Khaled tied to towel to his waist and climbed the tree like a squirrel. The thumbs in his 2 feet were bound together with string of jute to help with the climbing. Khalek stared down at the cordon hanging from his waist. Swami shouted, Khalek, Khalek, what are you looking at? Khalek replied, snakes have left their skin in the juice. Hassan felt sad hearing it, as any child would who heard such the news. Somir, however, understood Khalid's cunning. No one would want to drink dead palm juice after hearing such a thing. Bring it down either way, he told Khalid, under the juice's guise of inspecting the inside of the cauldron. Khalid inserted a straw and drank a fair amount. This was why most never called from for help, even though he was a master at climbing trees, even though others were scared of. The village elder Khotebibi had foretold Khale could die falling off a tree. Whenever Khalid climbed a tree, many anxiously waited to see if the prophecy would come true. Thank you. Thank you. It's
Right. Hi, everybody. Thank you, Mozid, for that reading. Thank you, Shariar, for your reading. We're going to transition over to the conversation. For those of you who joined later, my name is Jeffrey, and I'm the Executive Director of the Asian American Writers Workshop. We're based in New York City. And I'm really thrilled to be in conversation with these two writers tonight. I have a few questions. Shariar and I are going to go back and forth. If anybody in the audience has questions, please feel free to drop them in the chat. We'll try to sprinkle them in throughout the conversation. We want this to be active and conversational for everyone here. So please feel free to share any thoughts, any questions you have in the chat, and we'll be sure to bring them in. To kick us off tonight, Mozid, this is such a special launch for such a special book. And at the workshop, and I know Singapore Unbound also, we're always thinking about, contemporary Asian identity and the relationship that the diaspora holds to both home and a cultural context. So, tonight, as you're releasing this book by a US-based publisher, I'm curious to hear how you feel about the release, about really introducing this story to a wider world.
Thank you, Jeffrey Nuddin. Actually, I'm very excited about this because I have been writing for many years, but it is first introducing it just come out from USA by Gaudy boy. Um, it's no doubt it is a great event for me. Even my books first it come out from Bangladesh in Bengali, and after that, so many of reader who was pleased and they influenced me and they asked me it is translated and it will enjoy to international audience also. Then I take the harder works. I think the story is based on Bangladeshi society. Also, it's Hassan's journey. Also, Hassan's a young journalist who come from remote village, and he has good university result and good job, but he is disillusioned about his colleagues, and he um, uh, unhappy with his wife, and yearning for his self-minded colleagues Bilu. And at fateful night, he was caught by police, and he produced court, and he jailed for 40 days. Then it has starting for his misery, and then he memorized many people he knows from his country, his village, and they are victimized in social injustice, and many lots of their in gender inequality, and many patriarchal expectation in there. It's a little, it's a short story long, I think. And Bengali literature is very rich, and it has a long history and 1,000 years. Even modern era, starting when colonial rule, British has come in and rule in India, and then it starts modern era, and it has a rich novel also, but few are translated in English because it's a very hard works, and it's a very challenge for Bengali writer also. Even I have scope to introduce it's a diaspora, and Bengali and other Asian writers also. Diaspora who live in abroad in Bengali writer, their challenge is not as like me, because we live in Bangladesh. It's my language problem. It has emotion. It's many problem in here, because our not freedom of speech is not enough. Many problems, religious problems, it's a social barrier, women and men relationships. So I have a very enjoyed it. So thank you.
You mentioned the translation process. Shahryar also talked earlier about his own experience reading, the English and the Bangla versions. You translated your own novel from Bangla to English. What was it like to kind of go back to the text and almost reread it and rewrite it when translating? When you were translating, did you learn things from the story? Were you surprised by anything? I'd love it if you could just talk about the translation process.
I mentioned before, translation process is not easy, but after translation, knows English, and they experience about international. They help me, and after the manuscript, it's sent many editors. They edit. Editing lots, and there's make suggestion, and I follow that. And especially I grateful to Yume. Yume is very she's very good editor, and I works with her long days, and he has suggestions. I follow, and I think it's a after that is a good script we have make, and I think that the English and Bengali, I think it's a more or less same, not very much changes, especially its story is same. But English has been the English script has been go through many editing process, and it's some little bit skinned down and is concise version. I think little bit better than Bangla. But Bengali audience when read Bengali, I think is also okay.
I can sort of jump in.
Go ahead.
Jump in. I wanted to ask you were talking about and in the beginning. Tell us a bit about the dynamics of the three main characters. There's three main characters in the novel, Hasan and Fariha and also Bilu. And can you tell us a little bit about that so that perhaps a lot of us who are not aware of the book can sort of understand what's going on?
I think you know, especially Hasan. It's a story follows Hasan. Even Bilu is another main character. Bilu and Faria. Faria is wife of Hasan. But two are it's a represented thing on Bangladeshi society, women of Bangladeshi society. One are made by patriarchal hierarchy, patriarchal desire as like Faria and Bilu. Bilu has a long journey. He come from a village and he got good result and he has got job and he feel he represent. I think she represent a modern and modern women character in Bangladesh.
That's really great. I'd love to switch gears a little bit and talk about form. You're a poet. Gaudy boy author Rahad Abir has called this novel a Bengali epic in the form of a short novel. So as a poet, now novelist, can you talk a little bit about your relationship to, Bengali epic poems? You mentioned there's a long history of Bengali literature and ways that form has inspired you and inspired the writing in the novel.
It's a great praise for me, even my books. Rahad Abir is a very important writer in diaspora writer who live in, I know he live in America, and recently his book come out from Gaudy boy, and his name Bengal Hound maybe, and he Georgia, he won Georgia award. So his remarkable mention, remark is very important for me. I think he told that sentence. It's a figuratively and not it's direct, because in this time the poets are not writing as a epic, because epic time is over and 100 or 200 years ago also. But it's maybe I mentioned writer of Moby Dick. He told about the fiction is a epic of modern poets also. So it's, I think I am a poet and it's accidentally a novelist. So I tell you, but. I have been writing for 4 decades, and I have written already 60 books. So even my one books named Mahfuza Mongol, a anthology of poems, and it come out in 1986. It has been published 21 times and published. So it's a great and very famous in Bangladesh. It's our medieval in a medieval year, our writer. Our poems write one type of anthology is called Mongol Kavya, this type of anthology written by Hindus poet, and another another is Muslim writer who written a romantic Ponayopakkan love story is because they do not believe Hindu deity and Hindu goddess. So, but more towards as like same because they have used many of many of Jina and many of fairy tales in there and duties. So when it's cut up from when British come out in India and they rule in Bengal, and that's time our new era starting new era as Michael Madhusudhan Dotto, he newly started writing a epic, it's modern epics, according to John Milton and before that. But my memory, my Mapuja Mongol is another this type of works. It's a single poets, it's a short poets, but it's mentioned, it's referred to medieval age. So many of mention I am one another copy poet of Mongol also, but it's not a history. But I think my books, my Memorial Club has many story, many side story, many journey in here. It's a depict and portrait of Bangladesh. So I think Rahad Abir mentioned is that it's a who read the books. She feel and he show he learn very much about Bangladeshi society. They are Mijari, there are many character and there are differences, there are gender inequality, it's etc. I think so. It's again I thank to Rahad Abir.
So I wanted to ask because you mentioned using jinns and all these fantasy elements. How do you tackle mythology? Because a lot of it is present in your novel. You mentioned there are passages on Mahabharata. There's mass passages on uh, other historical events, mythological events. So how do you tackle mythology in your novel?
It's a good question. I think mythology is a very tested language in our society because many people know about mythology. When we mention Jesus, we mention biblical and symmetric things, even Ramayana, Mahabharata. That's character are very familiar to our people. So when I use as the problems and the heroic voice are same, not very much changes. If we mention, so I think even Eugene and Piari, we live in there because many people believe they have present in and they live in among the society and they love him, they married him, and it's our belief in our society's belief. That's I think.
I want to go back to form for a second. Can you talk a little bit about what interested you in writing a novel? What made you think you wanted to write a novel? And when you go back to poetry, Are there lessons that you've learned that will inspire your future poems?
Uh, uh, I think poetry and fiction is not very much different because it's a process of writing also. When a writer write poems, is very short and he use imagery and myth and very selective word. And when he, but it's not possible to incorporate many things, many character. When he write novel, they have they have large narrative and many people and many character in their conflict has and love and there are many things we can use in novel. So novel it's not possible to depict all things about all things about our thinking and our society, not for enough for poetry. Then we select the another form. I think it's the I mentioned it's not very much difference because many poetry and many story are comprised to novel. So when I write novel and I use my experience of poetry because we always select selective word and myth and image even yeah, our one of the greatest novelist is named Bonkim is about 200 years ago. It says poetry will be read a prose. Prose and poetry are not very much different, I think.
Sorry, I wanted to ask about Mojid, um, what's next? Like, because Memorial Club has taken so much of your time. I've heard that it took a long write, and it took a lot of edits, a lot of translations. What's next? Do you want to write another novel? Is it going to be similar or something completely different?
I have already written one novel based on our rebel poet Kazi Nazrul Islam. Nazrul Islam's life. Kazi Nazrul Islam is very famous and very influential poet of Bengal. His works against colonial rules, but his life was not. Life was very misery and he sufferings from long 34 years. He has dismantled and he not writing anything. So, but he has been writing only 22 years. Uh, but when many leaders have in India is Gandhi, guys like Gandhi, Subhash Bose, many important characters with them. So I depict and portray with that time by writing based on our rebel poets. Its name, the book's name, তুমি শুনিতে চেও না. It's a Nozrul, it's one of very famous song. তুমি শুনিতে চেও না আমার মনের কথা. I think Zafrin will be understand this.
I can understand Bangla, just I don't speak it very well, but I'm learning from my husband. To wrap up, I have one more question. What do you want from readers to take from the book? What are you hoping that they come away from it? What is your hope for the readers when reading Memorial Club?
I think we are part of world. We are part of Asia. Asia is share same even we are ruled by the British or European colony. So we are emotion and all are I think same. The reader who read my books and they learn lot of Bangladeshi issues and how write the Bangladeshi writer and our aesthetics of novel. I think I suggest them say they should read my book Memorial Club.
Thank you both so much for this conversation, for the book. If you haven't read it already, everybody, please purchase this amazing book. It's available online on the Gaudy Boy website. I think also on Amazon. It's a really, really delightful read, and I hope you all go out and get it. Mozid and Shahryar, thank you so much for joining us in the morning so early. It was great to be in conversation with you, and I will turn it over to our gracious hosts, G and Lily.
Thank you so much, Jeffreen and Sharia and Mozid, for that conversation. It's so interesting to hear, all you talk about, the long literary tradition in Bangladeshi literature and how that tradition is so much entwined with both poetry and prose, so much so that, there's perhaps very little to distinguish between the two, because after all, epics are written, narratives written in verse, I guess, and both seems to feed into the work of Mozid in his novel Memorial Club. So thank you so much, for this really, really interesting conversation. And I also want to thank everybody for coming, to this book launch. It's incredible that we can do something like this. I just want to acknowledge the fact that here we are gathered together in this Zoom meeting from all over the world. I took a quick look at the chat and we have people dialing in from, Australia, as well as Boston and Chicago, and of course, Bangladesh. So really, really a kind of a global audience here. And we have, of course, gathered together, to celebrate great literature, to celebrate Mozid Mahmud. Thank you so much for being here. If you missed my earlier introduction at the start of the meeting, my name is Ji Leong Ko. I am the founder and organizer of Singapore Unbound, which is a transnational literary organization based in New York City. We do two things. We organize events, literary events such as this one, and we also publish through our press called Gaudy Boy. So the link has been put in the chat to find out more about us. We would love to actually stay in touch with you in one way or another. Thank you very much, everyone. We'll have to say bye for now.
Thank you so much.
Bye.
Have a lovely evening and morning. Thanks.
Thanks.